George Whitfield, joined by my running mates here, Trevor Knight and Clint Stoerner. Very special guest on a very heavy Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. We're joined by one of my favorite people, legendary college football coach, many athletic directors sit by their phone, hoping he decides to come back. We're joined by Coach Chris Petersen. Coach, what an honor to have you join us tonight.
George, my pleasure. Looking forward to talking to you guys.
So we're going to roll with Coach Pete tonight, a deep dive into the mechanics of taking over a brand new program, installing not just the program elements, but also getting your family aboard. What is happening that we don't see or understand? The new changing landscape of college football with the transfer portal and with the opt-outs at the end of the season as guys start to look forward to the NFL. There are opt-outs both in the college football playoff, where we used to think everybody that gets a chance to play for the playoff will obviously take that opportunity. That's changing. And then the bowls. So your team, you work so hard to construct it, and then as individual guys have success, they begin to come out of it. And what is that like to manage it? But first, we want to pay respects to Coach Mike Leach. Such a big shapeshifter in college football, not just offense, but mentality. And when Sunday football used to look down on Saturday football, it was people like Mike Leach and Chris Petersen and Chip Kelly who started with their innovation, started winning games in such ways that NFL started to copy them. And now when you watch No Huddle, and when you watch a lot of the concepts and the heavy shotgun and the wide formations, it's because of what the pioneers of college football have done. But we lost one tonight. Very heavy-hearted in all respects to the Leach family and the Mississippi State football community. We have a couple gentlemen on here that have competed against him, gotten to know him well. Clint, I want to start with you, with your experiences. Can you share with us how you come to know Coach Leach and competed against him, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, look, George, it was easy for me, man. I caught the brunt of it, if I'm being completely honest, when Coach Leach was at Kentucky with Hal Mumme. I saw it firsthand, the Tim Couch days. I mean, they were an absolutely art. I mean, just a work of art to watch. As a quarterback, you almost envy guys that got the opportunity to play in his system. And I think here's the thing, George, is I think everybody that I've heard talk about Mike Leach today, there's a long laundry list of the air raid and being a pioneer in the air raid, which sits, in my opinion, right along with the West Coast offense, the air coryell and the run and shoots. And, what they were able to do, starting with Hal Mumme and Mike Leach, what they were able to do and the lives that they were able to impact with that air raid system is second to none. When you look at how that thing improved high school football and allowed so many youngsters to play at a high level that maybe weren't 6'4" and could run like the wind, and those guys were able to compete. And then obviously it's all throughout college football. So you talk about the number of lives that he was able to touch there. Absolutely tremendous. But I tell you what, George, I got to eat lunch one time with Mike Leach. James Whalen was a great tight end at Kentucky. And I got to eat lunch with Mike Leach and spend about an hour with him, man. And I'm be honest with you. You guys know me, Coach. You don't know me yet, but we're going to get to know each other this hour right here. Coach Leach and I probably don't have a whole lot in common from a personality standpoint and the way we kind of view the world and all. But I tell you, when I left that lunch with Mike Leach, there's one thing that he displays or that he possesses that I just think is, it's as important in terms of being a good human being. Any friend of mine has it. Anybody that I invest time in has it. And I'm telling you guys, and you know this, but it's real. He is unapologetically authentic. And I love authentic human beings, right? We all have our flaws, but when you can be real and authentic, I can live with your flaws, man. I'll die for you. I'll go to battle for you. And Coach Leach is just that guy. I think if you look that up, if you look authentic up in the book, man, there should be a picture of Mike Leach right there. So experience the scheme, beating the heck out of me. Obviously, it's second to none, and the man was even more special.
Wow. Coach?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this is he hard for me to talk about, to tell you the truth. I when I start to really think about him, it gets me going. So I'll try not to think so deeply, and I'll really think about how our relationships were. And first of all, Clint, you said it all about the football part of things. I don't think there's a guy that in the game that doesn't know about Mike Leach, really, because of how he revolutionized the game. He and Hal Mummy, that whole thing, that air raid. I mean, even if you don't run it, you're going to go against it. You're going to see it. You're going to have elements of the things that he talks about. But the thing was so cool about him is he's just such a purist. I mean, such a purist. Everybody could think about running his offense better than he could. And, why don't you run the ball? He was just so, like you said, authentically him, and just a purist in every sense of the word. But I'll tell you this, like, I don't even really think about it in terms of the football part of things for me. I just think there's not been another human that has been as unique as he's been, like, for me in my life. Every time we'd have a conversation, I always walked away laughing, smiling, and then had to share the story of whatever we just spoke about with somebody else that even kind of knew it. I mean, every time. There was never one time that I talked to him that it was like 10-minute conversation and like, okay, good, see you. And I don't, a couple of days later, you forget about it. Like, it is story after story. And what a wonderful, like, just unique. It's really, such a powerful force in this world.
Wow. Coach, thank you for sharing. Clint, thank you for sharing. That's generous and thoughtful, and having us all going through this, but there are those of us that know him better than others. And you were a colleague of his and competitor. Clint, you were a competitor of his, and just the respect of being I have form of just being a young quarterback guy who wanted so badly to contribute on that island. And I used to watch him at camps and watch his film, and kind of pick up on some of the phrasing. But I envy that you guys got a chance to kind of know him from that standpoint, and to the family and to that locker room and that community, multiple communities. It's not just the Mississippi State community feeling it tonight. So, Coach, if we could take the next step, there's so much we don't know about coaches. Really, we know you guys as big time gamers. We see the big contracts scroll at the bottom of our TV screens. We see you guys during your halftime and post game interviews. We don't know much else. Tonight, I wanted to see if you would walk us through here at the Field of 12 some of those elements. And I just want to really start out. What is that lifestyle like as a general in charge? I mean, de facto, you're in charge of a whole athletic director. I mean, the whole athletic program, but you spearhead it from football. But what is that like on your system, on your soul, on your family? And people don't understand, like, I remember Urban Meyer said he couldn't even enjoy wins because he felt like he had to get in there immediately and make some kind of a recruiting call. Or I played for Coach Trussell in college at Youngstown State, and I watched him at Ohio State, and he said, I relish the wins in the off season. That's about it. Everything else, it's going to be working. Like, what is the ride like up on that saddle? if you could put that into any type of context for
Oh
me.
boy, that would be like, to really do it justice, it would be such a long conversation, but it's certainly not like it appears from the outside. It's been, and I'm sitting here talking to you today because it's rough and it can squeeze you and eat you up if it's not done with a tremendous plan of how you want your life to be. That I've learned since stepping away. Coach Tressel talking about, relishing, enjoying the wins in the off season. God bless him. That's way better than most can do. Hey, it's usually survive and advance is, the mentality, and not the right mentality. But it's just like you started, George, with this question about what's it like for your family? What's it like to be there? It's like, it's just all consuming. And, I'll start with the wives. I always say this in coaching: you either have one of the greatest wives, one of the best people ever, or you don't have a wife in this business. It just doesn't, it just can't last. They have to be so tremendously independent. They have to be understanding of, like, this is how the life goes. You're away so much from your kids. You want them to be part of your program. But when you are home, or if you go on vacation, there's 125 kids in your locker room, and there's 500 recruits that you're probably recruiting and looking and paying attention to with your staff. And then there's a building of 50 other people, from academics to marketing to recruiting to training to strength. So it's just going on at all times. And so I think, like, looking back on it, you have to be so calculated and so disciplined and build skill to be able to enjoy this process somehow, some way. Because if you don't, it's going to get you.
Coach, can you circle back? You said something, man, that intrigues me. A lot of things, not just something. You said several there, Coach, but the one where you said you learned since you stepped away, the tremendous plan that it takes to be able to enjoy it. Can you pull the curtain back a little bit there on maybe an instance or just one of several things that you're speaking directly to there? I don't want you to give away your plan, because I know you got a big future here, but can you pull back the curtain a little bit for us?
Yeah, my future's right here now in front of you guys. Well, I'll tell you this: there's not a business person that I've come across, and I've come across a lot of them, a lot of really spectacular people, that entrepreneurs and run businesses, and certainly not a football coach that I know that really has a plan for their life. And let me back up here. First of all, every business person I know is a lot like a football coach in terms of how obsessive and thoughtful, and every waking moment is thought about trying to bring their business plan to life, how to build the culture, the environment, the strategy, the execution, how to fend off the competition, to get a leg up on the competition. And football coaches are no different. I mean, every way, how do we move this program? How do we move it like, 2 inches a day? How do we get an advantage in the weight room and in the nutrition department and the mental skills department? Like, it's consuming. Like, how do we do this? And so everybody's on the same page there. But out of all those people, and I know they're out there, but I just don't know any, that had a plan for how they wanted their life to go, no matter the arena that they're in. So let's talk about being a CEO or, an entrepreneur, start up a company. It's kind of the same thing. They can be all consuming jobs, and certainly this crazy arena of football and where college football is gone, in left field in a lot of ways. I don't know anybody that has a plan for their life. Like, how do you want your life to go in this arena? Because societal forces are going to make you go a certain way and tell you what's important in your life and try to reward you with these contracts and wins and rankings and money and power and prestige. And none of that in the long game is going to be fulfilling and rewarding. That's not what we're after at the end of the day. But in that arena, that's all that really matters. And that's what you're going to be rewarded for. So if you don't back up and say, wait a minute here, and I know a lot of this sounds cliches, but this is why I stepped out, because I couldn't make sense of this. I had the most beautiful job in the world that I worked my whole life to be at the University of Washington. Wonderful university, aligned with the administration, the kids that we worked so hard to get in that locker room, awesome kids. And I'm not enjoying this. And I'm frustrated with this thing. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I couldn't make sense of it. Wow. So since stepping away, I've made a lot of sense of it. And I've talked to 1,000 coaches and business leaders and been able to kind of put some of this. And this is one of the things. It's like, who's got a plan? Like, who has a purpose? What's the purpose, for you coaching? Not just to win a bunch of games. I get that. That's the goal. Or even to make a bunch of money. That can't be the purpose. That's maybe part of one of your goals. Right. Like, that stuff is short-lived. And so what is the purpose of your life? Why are you working in this arena? And then what are the values that you want to live through? And then the principles or the anchors of your program or of your life that you want to live by. Like, who gives thought to that and puts that down like on a sheet of paper, like it's a game plan, right? I couldn't even go into a stadium without a game plan as a football coach. You guys can relate. I think there's some other sports that you probably could. Mike Leach might have been able to, because he's got that system, that air raid, and he's got his little tiny game plan. And I'm like, that is so beautiful. Why can't I have a system like that? My system is like this, like pages and pages. But I couldn't go into a game without game planning and having a game plan, right? None of us could. I mean, it'd be like going in there naked. Well, how about putting that down for your life? Like, what is your purpose? What are your values? What are the roles in your life that the behaviors that you really want to do as a dad, as a husband, as a leader, as a mentor, as a friend, as a brother, as a, sister, whatever. Like, that was an aha. It's like, how could I not have a game plan for my life? And I'll tell you, I dabbled in some of this stuff. I had, I talked about my purpose. I kind of wrote a letter to myself, like what I want, like a purpose statement, but it wasn't the same as putting a game plan together and then intentionally trying to live through that and build skill, just like we're trying to build skill in our players or with our coaches. And so that's one of the things. It's like, like I look back and I'm like, how can I miss this?
Even to get to that, though, you have to recognize that you are more than what you do. Trevor is more than just being the Aggies quarterback and captain. Clint is more than being the Arkansas quarterback. But when you're in it, sword and shield in hand, that loss, the loss got me because I'm a quarterback and we're 0-3. So I am not, you know what I'm saying? That what you're saying, it calls for all of us to recognize you are more than what you do. You're more than what you do, which, man, that's like an out of body recognition. TK, I know you wanted to hop in here, but Coach, that's like gospel right there. That's gospel.
Yeah, really neat, Coach. And I want to, and I know you've had many of these conversations, and you don't know me from Adam, but I want to commend you on having that mentality and recognizing that, because I think watching the game from where I sit nowadays, out of ball, I can see a lot of people that I was close to during the game that put on the blinders in the coaching world, they're a QC. So they're going to go put, scout team cards together all night long just so they can get a position job, and you work your way up. And before you know it, you're sitting there and to the outside world, it looks like you met all of your goals and you're a rock star and everything's great. But internally, at least some of the guys that I know, they haven't found that purpose. So I want to ask you this. I'm going to kind of go against that. You mentioned purpose. Looking back on your coaching career, which was absolutely phenomenal, I would love to hear on the positive side of things, what were some of those nuggets that you look back on and you're like, man, that was amazing. That was cool. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad I did that. Some of those memories.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Trevor. Like I don't I don't want to just go down the negative rabbit hole of this is terrible and all these things. But again, it can get that way if we don't really have a plan and intentionally live our life like we're supposed to. And before I go there, I want to go back to what George was talking about. Like it should always be person greater than whatever, player, person greater than coach, person greater than CEO. But that's easy for me to sit here and say, because especially in the arena some of these kids are and the coaches are in, at best, it might be person equals coach. Or I should say this, coach equals person, or player equals person. And in a lot of people's minds, this arena and the love and admiration that they've gotten for years, and some of these kids in high school even, and now they're in this arena, it's really like player greater than person.
Yeah.
Coach greater than person. Like you might not say those words out loud, but that's really the feeling in our, like, that's what we get rewarded for.
Right.
That's where all the reinforcement comes. So it's very easy to have your identity completely tied into what you do, not who you are. And I've known that for a long time, but I've even gone off the deep end and it's like, hey, no, I'm a coach. That's who I am. That's the person that you are going down a dark path with that type of thinking. And so, yeah, but so sorry about that rant there, Trevor, but I'll go back to yours. I mean, the coolest thing ever is, building your locker room and putting the staff together, and not just your coaching staff, but with the strength staff, with the academic people, with the recruiting staff, and creating alignment. That's probably the number one thing that I just see in, teams, and certainly teams that are off. It's just the alignment is not there. And it's very hard to do. It's an all day, 24-hour, 7 days a week, every day of the year type assignment to create alignment. But when you start doing that and everybody's believing in the same things and bigger than just winning football games, it's pretty cool. And so for me, the heartbeat of our program was always something that I called Built for Life. And it was really just about trying to teach elite life skills, championship work ethic and habits, and, like what an awesome teammate looked like. I mean, it really was that stuff. And and it's almost like Trojan horse values, right? So you're using the platform of football to really it's like, this is about ball, but it's really not about ball. It's really about all these things. You think this thing's hard you're doing now? Wow, wait till we get done with this. And, we get out in the real life and you're married and you have kids and this and jobs. And if you can build skill and build a foundation and we're all coaches, right? So it's about fundamentals and techniques. And it's like just a beautiful thing to be able to use that platform of sport, to break down barriers of different cultures and where kids come from. Starting from that is just awesome, let alone some of these other skills and all those things. So that was always really, really that was the most enjoyable part of the whole thing for me. And then, I loved practice. I loved going out there and we put a plan together and see what this was going to look like and tweaking it. And, talking about Urban, what you said about what Urban Meyer said. And I mean, to me, the games, it's just, you feel so much pressure and so much responsibility for not only your program, but for the other programs around in the universities, because you know what football's doing for everybody. The win is almost just let's just check it off.
Oh man,
we did it. And so, like I'm saying, you have to fight to not end up in that spot. You have to appreciate these victories and all the hard work that these kids put in and the coaches, and celebrate those. And when we get off track, it's about losing perspective. If I can simplify it to that, we just lose perspective when we start getting squeezed in the arena. And so you have to fight for perspective. And, I think I know how to do that. I know the words, but you got to build skill. It's easy for me to spew words here, but then you have to actually work on building skill to fight for perspective.
What percentage of your colleagues would you say approach the game as the game is a vehicle for something much bigger, generically? And I'm not asking you to castigate anybody, but how many do you think strictly come in as ball coach and get wins and get recruits and win versus, hey, there's something bigger and I'm just wearing the football backpack to get that across?
Yeah. I mean, well, let's be straight up and honest. And I knew this loud and clear. I might have enjoyed the Built for Life part of things as much as anything, but if we don't produce wins on the field,
you don't get that
and
opportunity.
Achieve those goals. We're not going to. Somebody else is going to be talking about Built for Life in this locker room with these guys and doing that, right?
Right.
And it's not like you want to go out and lose your game. I mean, you're competitive. But the enjoyment of what it was really about for me, it was really that stuff. And I didn't learn it right away. It really became over years that I could see the impact that it had on our players. One would be, you know what? I can tell he's into this more than just winning games. Like he's trying to help us with a bigger picture. So I think it helped the connection with the kids. They knew it wasn't, hey, they wanted to win as bad as I did. But it wasn't all just about that. It really wasn't. And some of the kids got that when they were with us, and some of the kids didn't get it until after they left us. And they'd come back and they'd say, oh, I get this now. This makes I didn't, in one ear, out the other when I was with you. But now at work, in what I'm going through, I understand, I see it. And I'm like, I get it. We're just trying to sow the seeds and everybody grows at their own different times. So, George, to answer your question, I think that there are coaches out there that really care about what we're talking about. But I'll tell you what, I had to fight so hard to find the time to do this program with them, to talk about these things. Because it is crazy, the crunch that you're under and how long you can be with your guys. And even if you could get extra time because you're talking about character development and, some of those type of things, not under the 20-hour rule, there's still you got to give them time away from you and your program. And that's one of the things that I worry so much about college football and high school football and specializes is burning these kids out on this stuff. It is truly becomes like a job to them. And that's not where, like they lose the love of the game because it's just like meeting and walkthrough and practice and weights and treatment. And then I got to go to class and then I got to come back. And I just think it would be so cool if like we could send these kids for the winter quarter to Europe and we'll see in a month and a half or 2 months. I guarantee you, if we could get that done, they would come back hungrier, more energized on football, into it more. but yet we got to weight train them year round. We got to meet year round. This is big business. We aren't going there. So it's just interesting where we are now.
Field of 12 after dark, very special night. Joined by really the biggest guest we've ever had on this 2-year-old show, legendary coach Chris Petersen, Boise State, University of Washington, many programs. On this eve of Coach Mike Leach. So we had a chance to recognize him. We think about him. Trevor Knight, Clint Stoerner. Coach Petersen, could we go more into mechanics? And guys, I want you guys to pick up the ball and run with me on this. Can we go back to coaching, and can you take us with you? What are the elements of a good job opportunity, and what are the elements of a bad job opportunity? Because we hear that a lot. Oh, that's a great job, or anybody with this, that, and the other. Well, from your perspective of seeing all these, and it's probably no clue how many jobs you've been offered that quietly were written on a napkin or sent to you on a text, or somebody hit you up in an airport call or something. But could you walk us through that? And then with the 2 SEC guys, quarterbacks we got on here, you guys have seen jobs and seen the league and the nation and everything, but could we roll with you on that, Coach?
Yeah. The one thing gosh, a lot of different ways we can go here, because I will say this. I think I'll just start with this. Probably the best thing that I ever did for my career was be tremendously patient and picky. And I will say this a million times. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. If you're happy, stay happy. If you're happy where you are, stay happy. Just keep getting better yourself. Just get better at your craft. Like, so many guys are just looking, and you start, what's a better job? Everybody, the first thing is money. And it's like, that is not what makes a job better. And in fact, back in the day when I was an assistant, I got offered money that was like, double. I think one time it was triple the money I was making back at Boise State. And for whatever reason, like, I don't know why that I was always so slow to go, or why I was patient, or why this one thing hit me to, like, if I'm happy, stay happy. I knew if I took that money, it's like, oh, I'd triple my salary. It wasn't life-changing money. And I would joke about, it's actually Happy Meal money. You take the taxes out of that. At the end of the day, you could buy a new car, or you could get a little bit bigger house, which again has no effect on joy and fulfillment in your life. And so I remember talking, some of the head coaches I was with, and like, they're thinking about taking the next job. And I'm like, you need to really think about that job, because this head coaching money that they're throwing around, that could be life-changing money. I get that. But most jobs are not life-changing money. And even if we are talking about life-changing money, you better really figure out, okay, the money's great, and put that aside. Why do I want to do this? Is it more responsibility and I need to grow? Is it going to be a better environment for me? Like, I know the staff that's there, and I really align and connect to those guys. It's on a different stage that maybe I want to test my competitive juices there. But I have just seen so many coaches run off the jobs, and I'm like, why would a guy take that job? I think it's so ego driven, because it's of a title and maybe a little bit more money that does not make it a better job in a lot of ways. And it's like, you know, it's interesting. When I became the head coach at Boise State, I did not want to be the head coach at Boise State. I wanted to be the offensive coordinator at Boise State. That's what my job was. And Dan Hawkins, who was wonderful, awesome to work for, he'd ask me, what are your goals? Like every year we talk about this. What do you want to do? I want to be the best offensive coordinator in the country. That's my goal. Wow. Next year, what are you trying to do? I just want to get better at this. I think I'm making progress, but I know I have more meat on the bone. I just want to get better at this. If you'll just let me visit people, if you'll just support me in going out and learning and growing, I just want to get better at this. So that's what it was. And then lo and behold, he leaves to go to Colorado. Well, I'm going to go to Colorado with him. In my heart, I just had no excited to take the same job over there in Boulder. I don't know why. I just, certain jobs give you some juice and some, it could even be that nervous energy, but I just didn't have that. So then I'm thinking about staying at Boise. Well, if I don't become the head coach, somebody else might take the job that really doesn't want me as the OC, or I don't align with them. So now it's like, oh boy, I really felt like I was almost trapped into taking the job. And so I take the job, but I just wanted to be the OC. And I was right. It was like, I know, so the first year's wild, right? We win all of our games, but it was because a lot of luck involved. I had been there. We knew the kids. I knew the culture. I knew the stuff that we had built with Dan Hawkins. And so the stage was set to have a good team. So I got lucky but that's what I just want to say to guys. It's like, just get better at if you're a DB coach, be the best DB coach in America and just really be good at that. And then once you feel like, okay, I'm starting to get stale, I feel like I need more. Maybe it is to be a passing game coordinator, a true passing game coordinator, not in title, or where you are. It's like, I get there's a shelf life to everywhere you've been. Maybe it's time for a new group, a new league to challenge, a new level, those type of things. But be calculated on what a good job looks like to you.
Coach, you mentioned two things. You mentioned two things over the last 30 minutes, and I want you to give me a specific answer on these, as specific as you can. You mentioned alignment, and that ultimately is what you work for, and when you're at your best, or the program's at its best. When in your career did you most feel aligned? Where were you at when the stars aligned for you? Number one. Number two, you just mentioned in your career you were incredibly patient. More specifically, when did patience pay off the most for you as a coach?
I'll start backwards. Patience paid off for me from, I think about when I started my career at UC Davis. So and I don't want to take you through my journey. I'm not saying that, but I mean, I could just go everywhere I've been, it paid off to get to the next spot that was really a better spot for me in terms of growth and progression and learning. That's what I think it really needs to center around. So how about this? When I'm 23 years old, I become the head coach of the UC Davis JV football team. We had a JV team back in the day.
Oh.
Didn't even want the job, but I didn't know what to do. I was going to go to Canada and play, and that thing fell through. And so I didn't have a plan. All these stories, right? They help shape our career, our like how we are as a coach. This is a big part of the Built for Life program that I had. Like having no plan, going through college, knowing it's important to get a degree, knowing it's important, to, go to class, to get great, all that stuff, but did not like school at all, but I knew I needed to do it.
Wow. So
that always helped me down the, I knew my player, they don't like school. I get that. But there's things in life we got to do that's going to pay off for us down the road. So I was one of those guys. But anyway, so I take this UC Davis freshman team, JV team head job. And the reason I did it is, one, because I was going to go to grad school, hating school, but I had no other plan. So I go to grad school and I take this job because, one, my dad was a coach And I'm thinking I'm not going to be a coach, but I just got done playing quarterback for Jim Soker, who's a legend in the College Football Hall of Fame, and Bob Foster, who's another guy that should be in the college football. Unbelievable, legendary coaches. And so I'm thinking, I just got done playing, learning from the best. I got all the answers. I can coach. So I'll do this. This is great. So I coach this freshman team. We got like 90 guys on this team. The players are about my age. The coaches that are hired are older than me or my age, but I got all the answers. Well, fast forward, it took me 2 weeks to even get them in stretch lines. I mean, it was a cat rodeo from the start. I mean, I'm teaching the quarterback like read progressions, like how you read things, and he doesn't even know where the receivers are going. Like he didn't. I mean, I'm so far in left field as a coach. And I always say this, like I probably learned as much in that 1 year of coaching as I did in the next 5 years.
Wow.
But after that year, I could have gone up and coached the varsity receivers. So Coach Oker asked me, hey, what do you think about coming up and coaching the varsity receivers? And I'm like, Coach, I'd really like to coach this freshman team again. And he's like, what? And I said, I need a do-over. I can't tell you how bad I was and how much better I think I could do. And he's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. You can coach him again then. And so I think about being patient right there. Like I could have been the varsity receiver. And I'm like, no, I need to grow and learn. And so I could give you a story like that all the way through my career of just not running to the next thing for more money or, another title or more prestige. It's just not about that in terms of the big picture.
It's good. That's good. Coach, I got a question for you. You mentioned in all this coaching change and chasing money and all those things, right? Again, us on the outside, we see a coach move logos, right? Move schools. And in our heads, hey, they jumped in a time machine and they levitated and all their stuff levitated over and they didn't have to worry about housing and all that stuff. Give us a little insight into the actual logistics of, and whether it's Boise State to Washington or whether one of your other moves of, get family on the phone. What are you doing with your house? How are you getting your car there? And while also trying to be on campus and establish yourself as that leader.
Hey, can I even tighten it up even tighter?
Yeah.
What does the first 6 hours look like? You got the job. Congrats. We on our way. What's the first 6 hours look like?
Well, let me say this. Let me just, before I get to the first 6 hours of taking the job, I'm going to go back to this. And I'll say this. It's all fun and games until they're talking about your life. It's all fun and games. Like everybody loves the drama of, oh, coach is going there. Oh, and who's going with him? And I wonder if I can get a job. And it's just drama. And from the outside, it's kind of entertaining and, oh, interesting. He left there. And I wonder what. And there's just a lot of heartache and pain and misery in these decisions, especially if you're a head coach, because you're leaving these kids that you recruited. And so, that is a very touchy, awkward, hard thing. Because you really care about them and you're trying to look out what's best, what's best for the greater good. And then, also your life. And so it is crazy. The stress and anxiety trying to decide, especially when you got a job. Like if you don't have a job and you're trying to get a job and you're out of a job, that's a little bit different, but that's stressful. But so that is super hard. And so, and then word usually gets out before things are done, before you can even talk to the appropriate people. So then that's frustrating. So then you can't even talk to whether it's coaches, your team, whatever, before word leaks. So that's really hard. And so, like in the real world, hey, we got a couple weeks, or you give a 2-week notice, or, even on college campuses, a professor, they're going to come in this fall. Like, no, you are done in 12 hours. You're out of this building and you are on another campus with a different logo, like you said. And then, so you got a locker room that you just left that is really, I'm trying to think of the appropriate word, like in disarray, because now they don't know who's going to coach them.
Right.
And that's super hard on everybody. And then you got coaches. Is everybody coming with you? And then you got marketing and recruiting people, and are they coming with you? So everybody's just up in arms. Then you go to the new place, and those kids are like, what's going on here? Who's going to coach me? Who's going to be my position coach? What's this guy really like? And so it is a really hectic, frantic, scattered, unsettling time for probably at least 2 weeks, let alone the 6 hours, George. I mean, the 6 hours are like, let me say goodbye to the people there, and I'll get back to you, and I'm always available, like players, whatever. And then you go to your new spot and you try to calm the waters there in 6 hours as much as you can, and you're trying to meet with people. And then the media, you got to have a media thing, and they want to talk to you. And it's just, it is the craziest experience that anybody could ever imagine.
That's a lot of lives affected when you laid out your move, and a small army will either pick up and move with you or parts. And then there's already an army there, which you'll either release or retire or absorb. Like, that's a lot. Clint.
So that's what people don't know right
Yeah.
there. Like, they don't know the drama it's playing. Like, when I even stepped away from Washington, that was one of the hardest things I had to ever do. Leaving Boise State was so hard. But on both cases, for me, I felt like if I stayed, the program wasn't going to move forward where I was in my journey. At Boise, they needed new energy, new life to take that thing. I had hit a wall. The arena had squeezed me, and it wasn't, I needed to move forward. There's a shelf life, I think, in most places. And because I didn't make myself healthier, which, is kind of that game plan that we were talking about earlier, which is a whole nother long conversation. The wall squeezed me again at Washington at the end of my 6-year run. And I was just like, this is not going to be better for these kids and these coaches and everybody associated with this program if I stay here the way I am. So that made me feel like that gave me some peace of mind, even though people on the outside would not understand that. But I knew in my heart, this would be the best thing in the long run for everybody involved.
Right.
Coach, how difficult do you? I'm looking through Boise State. You took over with a program that you at least knew a lot about, obviously having been there, pretty healthy. And then at Washington, you followed up Sark, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but yep. I mean, that was a pretty healthy program from the standpoint of wins and losses, at least. How different do you think it is for a coach that takes over? I mean, look, I'm looking at the guys that are in the top 10 right now that took over SC and TCU and LSU and just created great culture, great winning habits, obviously. Like, literally, they captured lightning in a bottle. How different is it, do you think, taking over a program like that versus like your two big-time experiences of having taken over a team that's won some ball games?
So I think if you take over a healthy program, one you've been in, a lot easier, right? Because you know the things in your mind that you thought were good, things you could tweak and change. You know the kids. You know so much. Should I even be here? Is this something that I feel we can move the needle? So that to me is easier. When you go to a new program, see, it was way different though back in the day when I came to Washington, because the transfer rule was different. So it's going to take longer. And I've said this a handful of times. When I first came to Washington, the only way I could describe it is culture shock. Culture shock for me and the staff that I brought with me, and culture shock for the players that were left looking at us. Now, this is what I say. I love Steve Sarkisian. Like, I consider him a friend. He's a great dude. He is a big-time ball coach. But my way, our way, completely different than his way. And so all these kids were recruited under his regime, and this is how we were trained, this is how we do it. And we're kind of thinking, why are you doing, this is how we lift weights. And they're like, no, we don't lift weights like that. We lift like this, or our academic philosophy is this, or like, and so it takes so long to create that alignment again that I'm talking about. Nowadays, with the transfer portal, if guys don't like it, they're out. You bring in 40 new guys. These places are bringing in 40 new guys. So now guys are going to be there willingly. So that's maybe the benefit of some of this transfer portal, like can transfer right away. I don't think it's better for the kids overall, like the way it is right now. There needs to be some tweaks going on, because I can't tell you how many kids have played in our programs that would have left us long in the dust. And we were able to really change their life in a positive way. Had the transfer portal been in effect, like, this is too hard, this is what I signed up for, and then are glad they stayed and worked through it and all those things. But anyway, that's a different time, Clint. That I guess the point is, you can make change more rapidly if you have your vision and your style and your way, and you really define expectations. And you get guys that really want to be, because I think in the older days too, guys are like, this isn't how we did it before. And this is how Coach so-and-so said it. And so there's a lot of, like, it takes a long time to like build that. Well, now guys are going, I didn't sign up for this, I'm out. Well, okay, we're going to get 40 new guys in here, and this is what we're all about. You can move the needle maybe a little faster than it took us 3 years to do some things.
Really good.
Coach,
Go ahead, George.
Go ahead, Trevor. I know you wanted to ask him about the kind of that opt out, how guys kind of get there and start making their own business decision type deal.
Yeah, I did. Coach George, why don't you ask him that? Because I got an X's and O's question for him to follow up transfer portal talk.
Oh, well, you go, then I'll go. Stay with
Yeah,
me.
well, I want to take you back, Coach, and I know we could spend 2 weeks talking about all the X's and O's and the good plays, the bad plays, and all those different things. But specifically, me as a young guy, I'm watching the 2007 Fiesta Bowl, and a game that I know is.
I see that Oklahoma. I see that Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I'm watching this game. I want to know from your perspective that kind of the ending part of the game, specifically the Statue of Liberty, but the hook and ladder, the trick plays, and I know everybody's got that on their call sheet, but to have the guts to go out there and call those plays, and then for your guys to execute them, and for the defense to be perfect, just all the little things that go into making those plays successful. Walk us through some of those decisions coming through the headset with you and your offensive staff, and then how it played out there in the game.
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's a little bit of our style, kind of who we were anyways, in terms of taking chances and just going for it. That's the first thing. Our mentality was a little bit like that, always at Boise anyways. The second thing is, let's be realistic. We were not going to be able to line up and beat Oklahoma running power or ISO at those guys all game long. Although we did have a physical team. We really did. We got a good team. But again, we weren't going to match up that way to them. So a little bit of those two things, when you think about those things. The second thing, kind of starting with the hook and ladder, that really was not that difficult of a call, because the time we had, there was like, I can't remember, like 15 seconds or 18 seconds. We had to score. Like, we didn't have time to we had to score, and we had to score now. Like, we had to, I think it was like 3rd and 18. So not only do we have to get the first down, we were running out of time even in the game. And so the hook and ladder, we had practiced for 5 years straight, right? Every Friday we're practicing that thing. And it was the favorite part of practice for the guys. And they, half the time it's on air, but sometimes we run against our defense and we'd get close, but they'd seen it enough. So we never got the full execution of it. So when we called that play, it was really like we didn't have another better play. Like, that was the good play. The second thing is when we scored, I thought about going for 2 right then and there. Because I'm like, we got momentum because we had the lead, had momentum, lost the lead, lost momentum, got the momentum back. And it's, the game is so much about momentum. I'm thinking, let's go. And so I'm thinking, and I stepped out on the field to, I was going to turn around and go, okay, let's go for 2. And there was so much pandemonium and guys were going so nuts. And the PAT field goal team's running out there that I'm like, oh, forget it. Let's just kick it. I kind of chickened out. And so I remember thinking, gosh, should I have gone for 2 right then and there? Well, we go into overtime then. And the first play, Oklahoma gets the ball. And Adrian Peterson, who had been hurt a lot of the year from a collarbone, was coming back. That was his game. And he was just getting warmed up. I mean, as we're going, like he started to hit his stride. First play of overtime, off tackle, 25 yards, untouched. And I'm like, if we score, we are going for 2. I mean, in my mind, like no doubt now. If we can score, it is over. So we do score. And so it's interesting. Our backup quarterbacks all game long, the Statue of Liberty was actually a red zone play and hash specific, right hash specific. So our backup quarterbacks, they kept calling, hey, coach, don't, they're in the head, there are signalers, don't forget about Statue when we be in the red zone. And we're like, Brian Harston's the coordinator, and it's like, yeah, well, we're on it, but we never could get on either the right down and distance situation or we're on the wrong hash all game long. And so when we score to go for 2, everybody throws it in. And it's like, let's use Statue. We haven't used it. And it's like, let's do it. So we call Statue, and it's a quick huddle break. And we got trips because we'd thrown the bubble screen out of that earlier in the game. And we'd show that a bunch of quick huddle break. Tempo wasn't as big back then. Quick huddle break, tempo throw to the bubble screen. So we do that, quick huddle break, boom. And you can see it's lined up and we're looking good. And they call timeout. And so they come to the sideline and I'm like, then I start getting scared. I'm like, hey, we think we're good here? Like, I no doubt 30 seconds earlier, this is going to be great. We're going to walk in and now they call timeout. And I'm like, are we good? And one of our coaches on the headphones, I think it was our receiver coach, MPs, is like, hell yes, we're good. And I'm like, it kind of startled me right back. Like, okay. And so then we run into works. And then, I got with Bob Stoops later and we kind of watched that. We did a thing for Fox where we watched it. And he said, the corner's actually supposed to blitz off the edge. And I'm like, huh? Like had he come and hit us, I mean, I would have probably had egg all over my face. And I'm the worst coach in America. And what a bozo trying that in that stage. And so, yeah, a little bit about that game.
Unbelievable.
Wow. Hey, coach, again, I just want to thank you before we get off. I want to thank you for not just the time, but these pages of notes and this insight and really, gracing us. Your schedule is still heavy. You may not be standing in front of the team room, but the demands and everything. So thank you again for just sharing with us and our community here. Question: portal, NIL, or the early opt-outs, transport back into this time as a general, which is the easiest of those to adapt and tackle?
And we're talking about the portal, opt-outs,
and the NIL. Which is the easiest of those 3 you think would be to adapt to and say, hey, we're in? And which one would you say, oh, hell, like this whole thing is, I just want to get your take on, again, from the tip of the spear, how are these, because we talk about this stuff all the time, but we're not leading an entire program and we're not trying to hold continuity to this thing. And we're not under that gun. We're not under the pressure.
Yeah. There's no easy one to tackle first, I don't think. Let me just say this. I think the opt-outs, and this is, are you talking about opt-out of a bowl game or leaving school early to the NFL?
Probably
Or both?
both, because even, well, as we all know on here, a great percentage of the underclassmen that show up at the NFL Combine go undrafted.
Right.
It's a staggering, like 70% of the underclassmen that heard one agent tell them, I think you're a third rounder. That's enough for me. And then they're watching the whole they're watching the draft, house full of folks, and it starts and ends with them never hearing their name, and they already gave up their spot in college.
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the opt-out thing, I mean, if you're going to be a first-round draft pick, whether you're going to leave early, like let's say you're a junior, let's start there. You're going to leave early. I'm contemplating, should I leave? And I'm going to give me, a first-round grade. That doesn't mean you're going to be drafted in the first round. That means you have the potential. They haven't done their injury, their history on injuries, character stuff, all those type of things. But if all indications you got a really good chance to be drafted in the first round, I think there's a really strong percentage you should probably leave and go to the NFL. And maybe the same thing for the bowl game. If you're truly going to be one of those first rounders. But I mean, if you're going to be a first rounder and you played in the bowl game and got hurt, you're still going to get drafted high. The worst case scenario, ACL, right? Like a year injury, really. You're still going to get drafted very, very high. Maybe not as high as you were, but someone's like, you're kind of a rare talent if you're a first rounder. And so, I would just it's football, and you played a lot of football. And can something happen? Yeah, something could happen. And then whether a guy should come out or not, I think it just depends. Can you up your stock? Do you have more meat on the bone? I know this. When we had Vita Vea, so, Vita, they were talking about being an upper second round pick. And we really felt like he had way more meat on like he could develop and really get into the first round. And even if he got into the lower first round, we're like, he still can get, like some guys have this is as good as they're just that good and they're not going to get any better, but they're better than most. Vita, we felt, was still learning the game. So he decided to come back, and he probably made himself $10 million coming back for that extra year. Just where he went with the signing bonus and the draft and all those type of things. So there's, and I get it. You could get hurt and it could knock you a little bit, but I think you just gotta, you gotta look at each case individually. The portal, again, I give the same advice with my career. Like, I think you need to be slow to go somewhere. I think quarterbacks are a little bit of a different issue because there truly is only one of them. And if there's a guy that's young and he's the guy, you kind of get that. The thing I think about the portal is, if as a coach, no coach, if you can't help this team and you don't bring value to the locker and you really can't play here, no coach wants you to stay there. They want you to go, if you're not this level of player, they want you to go somewhere where you can play. Now, you may take a little more seasoning and developing to get the time that you want. But the grass, that grass is not always greener. The grass is greener where you water it and you fertilize it. And stop second guessing you should be somewhere else. And I will tell you this, from the guys that I've been involved with, that I've paid attention to them transferring other places. And this is even me stepping out of it for the last 3 years and paying attention to the guys I know. I have seen very few where it got better for them. Very few. The majority is either the same, but probably worse in terms of playing time, all those type of things. It's usually worse. Yeah, all that. And I know they're kicking themselves thinking, I should have just hung in there. But it's almost the cool, hot thing to do now. Like, let me get in that portal and go. And I think you should be very careful about that. NIL would be the last thing that I'm talking about as a recruit. I don't even want to talk about that. until the very end of this. And the sad thing is, that's the first thing most places, a lot of these guys are talking about. There's a coach I was talking to, and they're talking about recruiting this kid, and they said, well, and these are elite program. And he said, yep. I said, you know, he told me, how was the visit? It ain't even about the visit. Well, we got a really strong offer out, but so does so-and-so. That's all it's about. The strong offer. And I'm
Strong
like,
offer as in financial offer?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You ain't talking just scholarship. You're talking
Scholarship. What? That's not what this is about anymore. Yeah. And again, these are like elite programs and these are elite kids and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't, but I know every kid is thinking, what is my NIL situation or potential down? And I think that's a question that needs to be talked about and asked, but it needs to be the last thing.
Yeah.
Do I like this school? Do I like living in this part of country? Do I connect with these coaches? Do I align with this? Forget about the uniforms. Forget about the size of the stadium. Forget about all this hype. And we would walk our guys out to the stadium in Washington on Mont Lake, which is truly, if you haven't been there, George, I know you have, so you can kind of attest to this. It is the greatest setting in college football. Like, you get a nice day out there on that water, 70,000 state. It is so spectacular. And I'd get the guys and I'd say, guys, guess what? And they just did a photo shoot with the unis and the sparkling chrome helmets and the black unis. And they're all hyped up. And we got the speakers blaring in the stadium. And I go, guess what? None of this right here. Isn't this awesome? They're like, this is awesome, coach. I said, none of this is going to have anything to do with your happiness coming here. I'm just telling you. Like, the work you're going to put in here, the day-to-day in that locker room with those brothers, the coaches that are going to coach you, the professors, the teachers on campus, the community, that's what this thing's about. We love running out here and getting our like 6 games in this, or 7 games in a season, a year in this. And it goes like that. So it can't be all about this. That's just part of it. And now it's going to just like, the first thing is about NIL. And to me, I think that needs to be the last thing. It's about these 2 schools or these 3 schools, and I just love them and I'm aligned. Oh, yeah, what is the NIL situation? I mean, in reality, too, you're not even supposed to be talking to to kids about that, that you're recruiting. Coaches aren't supposed to have anything to do with it, right? But we all know how that's going.
5 minutes left. We're basically running the 2-minute drill here, field of 12. I'm gonna go Clint, Trevor, and then Coach. We're gonna let you get back to changing the world there.
Yeah.
I hear you, brother.
Coach, I'm gonna be quick with you, man. I've never. This is the first time I've ever got to spend any time with you, and it's been a blast. It's been an honor. I hope you get back in the game if that's what you want to do, and I've always admired you from afar, from an offensive mind and a head coach and a leader of men. It's been an honor, and it's lived up to all the expectations. I got one question, man. Outside of football, I waited till I was 44 to get married and have a little girl. I got a 10-month-old little girl. You got a template on that game plan of for life that you can send out.
Here's the thing. I'd love to send you mine, but it would do very little for your life. But my one thing is that I will tell you on this. If you want to be the best dad you can possibly be to that little girl, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you need to be and focus on being the best husband you can possibly be. I think being a great dad will be the easy part. If you can be the best husband in America, the rest just falls into place like it should.
Wow.
That's
Love it.
great advice right there, Coach. I am somewhat newly married, almost 3 years, and I've got an 8-month-old little boy. So I'm getting into this season of life as well, and it is an awesome one. Let me ask you this on a personal standpoint. We'll keep it with family. Give us a little shout out to your family. Tell us about your family. What's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? We'd love to hear about the inner workings of your family.
Yeah, so my wife is the best person that I know on this planet. Yeah, I mean, really is. And I will say this to you two guys that are, a lot younger than me. If I would have listened to her 98.5% of the time, we'll go 99 because I think that's more accurate. If I would have just listened to her, my life would have been exponentially better and easier. And I would have avoided so many mistakes if I would have just listened to her. Wow. We get all so hard-headed, and we all think we got the answers, and we think that we know this, and there'll be nobody that knows you better, and nobody cares for you more, and nobody that really wants to help you get it right, but can see things a little bit further out of the trees than you can, than your wife. So listen to her. So I got a wonderful wife that's getting used to me being around a whole heck of a lot more than I ever used to be. And so that's really testing how good of how her patience and how good of a person she is. And she's awesome. And then I got two boys. One just graduated from college a year ago. He's working downtown Seattle. And then I got an older one that went back to school, and he's like in his third year. He's back in the grind. He's in his third year of med school. And so he's grinding that whole thing out there. So very blessed to have a, wonderful family after all these years.
Wow. Again, Coach Chris Petersen spreading the gospel, supercharging us. If you get a chance, if you're rolling with us live, you can go back on YouTube, certainly Field of 12. You can find us on all the apps. If you want to go back over this again with a pen and pad, he's taught us how to shape a tribe, how to shape a program, how to shape your life, how to approach a family. And I had an idea it was going to go like this. I knew we weren't going to be talking about two gap schemes and all
I don't even know anything
stuff
about that anymore.
yeah. But again, what an honor, what a true honor. Coach, thank you for coaching us, all of us tonight. You're one of the classiest, most respected men in this sport, and this show is dedicated to the sport of college football. So what an honor for us. On behalf of Trevor Knight, Clint Stoerner, and the legendary Coach Chris Petersen, this is George Whitfield, Field of 12 After Dark.